free.
got no COVIDs in us.
Results are in. So
the results are in, and the news is it's another edition of the Flashback to the Track podcast, episode 72. That's an awesome number. That's Benny Parsons' number, if I'm not mistaken, when he won his Winston Cup championship. So epic number. I'm James. As always, we're joined by Mark. He's chilling, thrilling in his Moradness hoodie. Mark, where we can get that hoodie at, dude?
You can go to moradness.com. It's part of the Motorsport Artist Collection.
That's right.
So
features Mark's work on it, and they paid him for that work, so they didn't rip it. They paid him.
I get a small percentage of the sales, so you should go buy one.
That's right. There's no code he can give you, but just check out moradness.com. It's pretty cool little hoodie. If you can't see it, it's okay. You're probably hearing about it right now makes you want it, so go get it. And as always, we're presented by Blue Emu, giving us maximum strength, relief for these tired muscles and joints that we have. And we had some tired ones because we walked a lot over the past.
Even with the golf cart, James, I walked 80,000 steps in 4 days.
Even with the golf cart, it's a lot there, man. Does the steps count the golf cart if we're moving slow enough, or does it?
I think if we like pump our arms, then it'll count it. Because sometimes, like when I'm like talking frantically, like because I'm European and I'm using my hands, it like counts steps. So
it's weird. It's like you remember the fuel bands from Nike? Just makes me think of just like shaking your arm, and it's like I'm getting fuel points.
The fuel points, man, and you compete against your friends. No, I just got the Fitbit now, so
wearable technologies a decade ago. Jesus,
not having the paddock sticker for your golf cart, sucks.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, you got to go through the team with that. That's the thing. It's like we had to go through the track for the trackside access. Then we had to go through IMSA to get paddock access, and it's like what and everyone didn't know what was going on. So
I'm gonna talk to one of my teams next time and see if they give me that paddock sticker, because
I want to get a little Huffy bike or something. You can ride with me. Be riding together, just like cruising. Yeah. I don't know what other tracks are gonna have in store for weather, because you know how weather gets in some places.
Riding a scooter around in the pouring rain at like Mid Ohio would not be fun.
Yeah, so. I wouldn't mind if it had nice tires and mud flaps, so at least I wasn't getting like muddy that way. But yeah, it would kind of suck. But then again, the golf cart is what it is. But this week we're not going to review some content, Mark. We're going to talk to a physical person about his racing life. Who are we talking to, Mark?
We're talking to Brent Wentz, who's a longtime NASCAR crew member and owner of Dayz Gone By vintage NASCAR apparel store. So it's going to be cool. We're going to talk about his career in NASCAR, his forays into IndyCar recently as a spotter, and just growing up. And also, we're, of course, going to talk about his vintage apparel store, which James frequents. That hat is from Dayz Gone By.
Yeah, I just picked this up recently. He's always got a good sale or a good batch of things going on in that store. But, Brent's more than just the vintage guy. And that's really what we want to get across. Like a lot of us, I was first introduced to Brent that way. I got some stuff from him before he had the whole store format and everything. And it was really cool because I just got to meet him and talk with him. And through a couple of races, we were able to go work, Mark. We were able to meet up with Brent and chat with him and just keep good, a good relationship going with him. And I always enjoy just talking with him. He's a plethora of knowledge. He's the kind of guy that when he starts talking, I perk up and I listen, because there's a lot of value that he's giving you with insights, whether it's about the sport or just about life, because he's been there, done that. He's a very experienced guy.
And he brings it all, from local short track stuff to working in NASCAR, working in IndyCar. So he's been all over the place. So he's got a full, like you said, full plethora and he's experienced everything. So he has a great opinion on everything as well, having seen so much. And let's dive right into our interview with Brent Wentz.
Handle it to where every 2 weeks they race, or every 3 weeks they can race. Because, just the money is the pit passes, the gas to get there, the tires, the gas for the race car, if you have damage, it all just adds up, and it's not there for everybody to do that every week. So you run into that too. So people just keep it sitting on jack stands, and there'll be a race somewhere and they'll be sitting under a couch, or it just won't be there. But usually in the beginning of the seasons is when you get the most cars.
Yeah.
Because because you had the whole winter and everybody's fresh and everybody gets out there and they're there for the first 3 weeks, and then it starts to fade away a little bit after a while. So
It's a shame. So we're gonna go into some questions here, but before we do that, first off, they're going to be a lot of good racing questions. We're definitely going to talk a lot about your roots, about a lot about racing in PA, modified racing, and some of your background there. But the biggest thing, I guess, to start it off is, tell us a little bit about yourself and currently what you do and what your position is.
all right, yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania, where modifieds and racing is prominent. From 4 years old, my dad raced. I was always at a racetrack, whether it was running matchbox cars in the dirt, or traveling the East Coast to just watch my dad race. Racing is just part of my family, part of my roots. My brother raced, I raced. It's just a big racing family. I was fortunate enough to, after graduate high school, move to North Carolina and hit the ground running pretty hard in 1999. Just, working for pennies really down here in North Carolina. You just have to start at the bottom. It's not like today where you can kind of merge into the middle of the mainstream NASCAR stuff without really any experience. You really literally had to start from the bottom, just doing a lot of, little jobs, and you'd go to the ATM after your week of work, and you'd have a negative balance in your checking account. Those kind of things were very prominent back in the day because you didn't make that much money and you were just climbing that ladder. So a lot different 2021 compared to 1999, but that's part of racing and the changes it has immense.
So when you're growing up in a racing family, is it something where when you get into it, like, everyone's kind of encouraging you to do it, or is it something that is expected of you to, follow in that racing background? What is that like growing up in that household?
You see it a lot throughout racing. You see the Burtons, the Elliots, the Blaneys. Everybody kind of comes to that conclusion where we're going to race, right? I basically just fell in love with it. I watched my dad race. That was like your Superman. Like you go to the racetrack, you watch your dad race. He's like your hero out there. So that's kind of cool growing up to, my dad's a race car driver, right? But I always worked on the cars. I never really drove them much. So I was always like hands on with the cars, and I got my first shot to drive with an enduro car at age 14. Now 14 is old for the first time driving a car these days. You see little kids out there driving. So I got my first shot in an enduro car, which is just a street car with a roll cage in it. Made a half a lap, flipped over on my roof, and that was my first race. I never even made it to the start finish line. You start 4 wide at a standstill start, first 4 rows, first 4 cars on a start finish line. They just wrap around the track. I went to the bottom, got pushed into the infield, hit a tractor tire that was wrapped around a light pole, and I flipped over and never even made a lap. So yeah, I mean, racing is it's in your blood. I have 2 older brothers, one raced and one didn't. So you can't say that it's for everybody. But for me, it was an opportunity to do what I enjoyed and do what I've always been accustomed to doing. So I get paid to work on race cars. Sounded like a pretty good deal to me.
So Brent, like growing up in Pennsylvania, like what's the racing culture like really like in that area? And like a lot of dirt racing, a lot of asphalt racing. Like around me, it's a lot of dirt racing because I guess I don't know if it's more affordable or what it is, but it's just what's popular. So what's it like in Pennsylvania? At
You
least
know,
where you.
yeah, Pennsylvania is a mixed batch. Really, I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, so you have big block dirt modifieds, you have sprint cars, you have asphalt modifieds, you have asphalt street stocks, all in the same areas. My hometown, there's a hodgepodge of different race cars that some go to New York and race, some go to Pennsylvania to race, some go to New Jersey to race. So it's a real mixed batch. Pennsylvania's it's kind of weird. Like I said before, the niche of racing in different parts of the country, you have this certain type of racing. I think Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey is just a mixed bag, and you have people that do it for a living and make money doing it, and they don't have full-time jobs. They just race for a living. And then you have the people that, like my dad owns 3 body shops and auto care center, so they have a business and they race. And then some people, they just race. I mean, you go to some of these people's houses, they have more money invested in their race cars than they do their house. You know what I mean? That's the dedication to racing on some people's level. They pour it all into the race car, and they live a little bit less to just to go out and race on the weekends. So it's definitely a different culture, up there. I think you have big money people, you have the middle class, and you have the lower class that just want to go out there and race.
It's interesting too, because like there is like a little bit of modified racing in the South. It's, I guess we would call it Southern modifieds,
Yeah,
but those are different than tour modifieds, which I believe those are the cars you're speaking of, like
yeah.
the wheeling cars.
These are actually like the smart modified tour that I'm spotting for Bobby Labonte this year on the smart modified tour. Those smart modified tour cars are based off of the NASCAR modified tour rulebook. So they are the exact same car that you would see at Loudon, New Hampshire, Stafford, Thompson. Yeah, those are the same cars. Now Bowman Gray is a little bit different. You got a little narrower tire, different carburetor, different rear end. So you got a lot of different stuff at Bowman Gray that's specific to Bowman Gray. So, but the smart modified tour is legit NASCAR modified rules.
So how did the smart tour kind of come about? Was that just a means for, another sanctioning body to have modified racing more in the South, or, what
Well,
really sprung it up?
you had you had the Southern NASCAR Southern modified tour. So you had a Northern modified tour and a Southern back in the 90s, early 2000s. And then they got rid of that and just basically made it the Northern tour, got rid of the Southern. The Smart modified tour was around in the 80s, 90s, mid 2000s, and that went away. Uh, so there was never a real secure sanctioning body in the South for full-blown tour modifieds until this year. Chris Williams, who used to be a business partner with Dale Earnhardt Sr., took the reins of this, bringing back the Smart Modified Tour, and they have a list of 10 or 11 races at really good racetracks. A really good car count for the South. So bringing that back has brought that back to life a little bit. So it's really neat to see those cars down here racing competitively, because not a lot of people have ever seen them race. So I think it's a growing fan base, and it's also getting people like Bobby Labonte interested in driving those cars. People that never thought they would drive a modified get in them one time, and he was hooked. So there you go. That's a guy that's driven everything, right? He's got accolades higher than anybody in that division, but he's out there having fun and he enjoys it. So it's just cool to see somebody of that caliber get one of those cars and right away put a deal together to run a full season. So that's pretty neat.
It is, because I heard about his deal on the Dale Jr. download, just listening to that. And first off, him being a right foot breaker was interesting, especially
Yeah,
in that he had to crack
yeah,
that whip immediately in that car. You got a left foot brake,
yeah.
just mainly because of the pedal box. But I think the biggest thing was the first race, being from on top of the spotter stand. Describe the epic finish to that race and how things kind of went against you, I guess, in a sense.
The finish was terrible.
Yeah.
To race those races down here are more tire conservation races. So you have to just kind of mind your P's and Q's for the first 50 laps, try to stay out of trouble, save your right front. When the time comes, you want to pit when the timing's right, change your right rear, swap your lefts, and then go on to the finish. And to be under a blanket at the end with Burt Myers, who is, everybody knows him from the Madhouse, Bowman Gray. Burt Myers is Southern Modified Racing. When you talk about Southern Modified Racing, you talk about Burt Myers. And then you have Matt Hirschman from Pennsylvania, who, when you talk about modified racing up north, talk about Matt Hirschman. To be under a blanket with those two guys coming to the checkers is a feat in itself for your second time being in those cars. It just didn't work out. Wrong time, wrong place, wrong time, I guess. Burt kind of just cleared himself, and there's a curbing that's probably 3 or 4 inches tall on the bottom of that racetrack. And we just kind of, skateboarded on that curbing. And then when it finally just hit the ground, I think it just bent the left front and turned the left front back, like towed it out a bunch. And when he got back to the gas, that thing just turned left. And, all I could do was cringe. I'm not driving the car, but I could see where it was headed towards the end of pit wall. And somehow or another, it hit perfect enough that it bounced off and didn't just stop,
Yeah.
He just kept digging, and it was more cosmetic, left front suspension damage, no chassis damage. And it was, I call it, your butt puckered, mine did, and I'm sure his was even worse. But just to get to that last lap, take the positives out of it. Get all the way to lap 99 or 98 3/4 of 99 laps to be in that position was really good. To end that way kind of sucked, but we came back last week at Florence and finished second. So I feel like the win will come. You just gotta. It's all about timing with these races. So as long as you hit the timing right, I think 2 more laps we would have blew right by that 7 car last weekend and been on our way. But it's just, that's how close it is. It's 1 lap, 2 laps. But take the positives out of it, and we'll move on to next week at South Boston and try to win. I think there's going to be a big car count there because it's closer to the north, so people don't have as much far of a drive to get to Virginia as they do North Carolina. So you might see a lot of northern contingent at that race. So should be fun.
So Brent, we're saw your social media post yesterday on Twitter about your favorite drivers growing up were, obviously Dale Earnhardt Sr. and then obviously your dad, Gary Wentz. And, talk a little bit about that, because, you said just some really nice things about it. They both wore open face helmets and worked their ass off and had respect to fellow racers. And just talk about a bit about that and growing up really with your dad as your hero,
Yeah. The Dale Earnhardt thing, I just liked him. I like that yellow and blue Wrangler car. It stuck out to me. I like that Aero coupe, big bubbly back window. And actually a guy that worked for my dad that did all the towing at my dad's body shop was a huge Dale Earnhardt fan. And he had a huge toolbox, and it was a Dale Earnhardt toolbox. And, I used to go in there and get my 50 cents out of his Dale Earnhardt toolbox to go get snacks and soda machine money. And so the Dale Earnhardt thing kind of just grew on me through people. And But my dad growing up, it's just cool to travel. And we always had a rollback. We never had an enclosed trailer. We had a rollback and a box truck that was converted into like a workstation. So we always rode in the box truck behind the rollback, and we go to New York and we go to New Jersey, and you're just riding in an old bread van, and you're in a couch that's bolted to the ground in the back, and no seat belts, and you're just going 4 hours to New York. And then you get to tell all your buddies when you get back to school the next week you were in New York and you watch your dad race, and everybody kind of thought that was cool. I respect my dad for his success in business. He's like my best friend. If I ever need advice, I call him. Who else would you call but probably your dad. But no, I wouldn't be where I am today without that guidance and watching him succeed in racing and business. So he would be the only person that I would call my favorite or my hero growing up. Still to this day, we text or we talk every day, one of the two. He's not very good at texting. He's kind of like Egyptian crypt when he texts, so you kind of gotta figure out what he's saying. But it's cool to have that connection. He's been to a lot of races that I've won. He goes, he's a big one of, as I'm his biggest fan, he's kind of my biggest fan. So the tables have kind of turned throughout the years. So it's pretty cool.
So did you ever get a chance to compete against your dad on the track, ever race against him?
I think the only time we've competed against each other is maybe on indoor go-karts. No, I came along too late in the, I want to try driving kind of thing. I've raced against my brother. Being out there with your family is kind of interesting, because for me, I don't consider myself a race car driver, but I'm not horrible at it. So when I go out there, I just don't want to make a fool of myself, and I don't want to wreck my own family. Like my brother's been doing it for a long time. So when you're out there and you're wheel to wheel and you're bumping rub rails and sparks are flying, and if that's your brother on the outside of you, it's like, just kind of mind your P's and Q's and just let him go on his merry way. There's a lot of brothers and a lot of fathers and sons that have raced against each other, and you see Kelly Moore and Ryan Moore. In the modifieds, it was Jimmy and John Blewett the third. They're brothers, and they always raced hard. So the Spencers, they always raced against each other in Pennsylvania. So they went at it hard. My mentality is, I just don't want to piss anybody off. So, but it's really neat. My dad and brother raced against each other a lot. I just came along. I started down here in 1999 in North Carolina. So I never really raced 2 weeks in a row ever in my whole career. It's always been a month or 5 months, so I never got to be competitive full time. So, but it's always cool to go back home and mix it up with the locals. To me, if I can go out there and race competitively with those guys, racing every 5 months or every once a year, that's success to me. So
that's nice. Oh, hello. I didn't see you there, but Mark did, because he's always watching. But if you've been watching us, you've noticed that we've been really pushing this product called Blue Emu, because they provide maximum strength relief to tired muscles and joints. It works fast and it doesn't stink. And you know what? I'm hooked on this stuff, Mark. Every chance I get, I feel some kind of ache or pain, I'm always spraying my body with this Blue Emu Continuous Spray. And it's really nice. I love the fact that it doesn't really smell or have like an oily residue too, dude. Like, it's really great. But to be quite honest, I don't know. Maybe I should lay off a bit a little bit. I don't want to give myself too much maximum strength relief. Blue emu! Just ended like that.
I don't know where you were going with that.
I don't know where I was going with either.
I was like, he's rapping, he's doing well, and yeah, okay, yeah, he's trying to think of the next thing.
I can't think of the next thing. It's like, I don't know what to do after that. You know, like, do you just hawk it? You know, I don't know, but you know, I think our listeners should go check out Blue Emu, man, because like they have a plethora of products, and they're on Amazon now too, which is crazy. Because you can get it dropped to your house via drone, because that's what Amazon does.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Aren't we living in Jeff Bezos?
That's what I keep hearing. Do that? You know, that like there's going to be drone guys, and the best days during pandemic are when the delivery guy comes. So you know what? Order yourself some food.
And open them.
There you go. Give it a twist.
Ooh, look at that. Look at that, working fast and it's not stinking. And you know what too? It sounds cool when you're using it. It really does. I'm really just gonna get the whole arm with this one here. So, you know, while I get the whole arm, I guess we'll just get back to the podcast. So at what point did you like make your way to NASCAR? Because I think at some point you told me this, and Mark has always loved this team, the Frank CC Racing Busch Series team. I remember you told me you worked for them in 2000. Mark, you love those guys for having actual corporate sponsorship, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they're a cool team. I love following Frank CC, man. They were an awesome team to watch. They were like the last like super powerhouse, like full-time Busch team that had no cup affiliation. So they were awesome to watch.
Yeah. 2000, I worked for Innovative Motorsports, which was my first job. It was Hermie Sadler drove a Little Trees air fresheners car. So, you know, my first perks of racing were smelly air fresheners, like get boxes of those things. I don't know if that was cool or not, but that was my first perk. Those things were so nasty and smelly, but they were free, so we took them. But
was it like the pine one or the black ice smell?
It was just vanilla. It was like the yellow.
Gotta get a new car.
It was pungent. It was very, you know, and I wasn't smart. I just take the things right out of the plastic. You know, on the back it tells you kind of like pull it out a little bit. I just would pull that plastic off and just let it ferment in my car. So it was pretty bad. But to the Frank CC stuff, I started there with Hank Parker Jr. 2001. We had GNC as a sponsor. And like you said, that team was a powerhouse independent team. It had Phillips 66. It had AFG windows. It had Aqua Velva. It had GNC. So it had pretty powerful backing. We had David Green, Tim Fedowa, Casey Mears. We had a bunch of good drivers there, and you know, we won a couple races with Hank. I think California 2001 was my first ever win in a top tier NASCAR series, fuel mileage race. But you know, we won that at Pikes Peak, July 27th, 2002, which was my 21st birthday. We won that race. So I was down in some Busch heavies in Victory Lane for my first ever beer that was legal. Not that I drank before that, but my first legal beer was a Busch Heavy in Pikes Peak, Victory Lane. So that was kind of neat. And you know, things just happened quick with that deal, and it shut down. It shut down after 2002. It was, like you said, you thought it was one of these big powerhouse deals with a lot of backing, and I think all the contracts for the sponsors ran out at the same time. And there again, they just shut the doors at the end of the season. It was kind of crazy.
So more specifically, like, what was your role with those teams you worked in, like early on in NASCAR? Like, what were you like, sweeping the floors in the shop and like lugging tires, or like what were you doing like in the shop and on race day?
Yeah, the Innovative Motorsports deal was, I mean, I think it was, if I look back at it, I bet you it was $300 a week. I was catch can man on the 30 car during races on the Saturdays. flew in just on race day plane and then go to the track for the whole weekend. In the shop, I just did, I want to call it bitch work, whatever the other people didn't want to do. It was like, hey, 17-year-old kid, come do this, so it was a lot of that kind of work. But it had a lot of experienced people. So every day as a kid, watching all these people work, doing all their work they didn't want to do, I was learning and learning and learning. So Mike McLaughlin was a driver there at the time, and I learned a lot of stuff from him because he was in the shop every day working. So he kind of taught me how to do a lot of different items. And then to the GNC CC Welliver days, I carried tires there, and I was a mechanic. Just did a whole bunch of things. Like there wasn't I didn't really have a set job. I was just doing just a lot of different things, whatever needed to be done. So in the end, that helped me because I learned a lot of stuff in my first, couple of years of racing. So like nowadays you get a job and you do this, right? This is your job. You do this. You don't do anything else. You just do this specific job. So these people aren't learning as much these days as you would have back in the days where you only had 8 people on a team and not 450.
Yeah, like, filling in those little odds and end jobs, does that like help more or less round out your skill sets as far as like understanding how a team functions, all the little different odds and ends within the organization?
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like you just learn so much. One day you were tearing down a car. One day you were putting together a car. One day you were making crush panels. One day you were making windows. One day you were making spoilers. One day you're out there pit stop practice. So those days in the early 2000s molded you for your career going forward, because versatility, even nowadays, versatility is way better off than just I only know how to do this or that. You got to be well rounded. Just like me spotting, that started back in when I was with Matt Kenseth. They needed somebody to second spot at the Brickyard. I was a mechanic. For some reason, the second spotter couldn't make it for the race, and I got, hey, you want a spot? Sure, I'll try it. Just another thing to learn. But through the years, you listen to that every race. You listen to the spotters, right? So you just listen and learn. You listen to the lingo. So just to get plug and played up there in Brickyard 400, like probably one of the biggest races on the NASCAR schedule. You're gonna put me up on the roof on the pagoda at Indianapolis, and we're gonna do it. So I pride myself in being versatile. So if there's something to try, I'm going to try it because it builds that resume, So, and who knew that day at the Brickyard 400 would lead to last year's Indianapolis 500, right? So it all just come full circle. So I never try to turn down trying to learn something new.
That's an interesting segue because, you've worked for some very stout teams over the decades in NASCAR and worked your way up and down the ranks doing everything in every series. How do you end up being a spotter at the Indy 500? How does that come about, man?
So, well, first you must be available and unemployed. The COVID stuff happened, and I was at Penske for a really long time and had a lot of success there, and thought that was going to be a permanent home going forward in my career. Then COVID hit, and we were doing the Sunday races. I wasn't going to the track because they limited the rosters. So I was like an in-house car chief, getting the cars prepared for if they were there Wednesday, I was getting other cars prepared for Sunday. So it was working out really well. When the Wednesday, Sunday thing stopped, the roster limit still stayed the same. So now you've got a group of people that usually would put together a car and set up a car in 2 days and have it loaded for the next race. Well, now you have Monday through Thursday to get these cars, or Monday through Friday, depending on where the race was. So now you don't need that army of people because you have so much time. You know, August, I got a phone call that I would be laid off, kind of because you do put a lot of work and effort into doing good, and you also miss out on a lot of things throughout your life because you're focused on job at hand, right? So to have that over a phone call was kind of it pissed me off a little bit, right? So here I was wondering what's next, because you're middle of the season and a lot of teams were laying off and cutting pay and cutting 401ks and cutting all this stuff. So it was kind of hard to get a job because it was happening throughout the series. Since I had some spotting background, I reached out to Mike Herman Jr., who spots for Ricky Stenhouse. Well, he spots for Chris Buescher now at Roush. And I just said, hey, how about some local short track spotting gigs? You know anybody? And he said, get me a resume now. He said, I don't care about if you can weld, if you can do this. He goes, just put a spotting resume together. He goes, I need it right now. So I was like, I didn't ask any questions. I didn't know what it was about. I got this resume together. I sent it to him. And here it was for Rahal Letterman's IndyCar program with Takuma at Indy. So I get a phone call or a text, probably a couple hours later. It was my friend Glenn McGowan, who's from New Jersey. He does freelance spotting, ARCA, Xfinity Cup, IndyCar. He's like, man, he said, you just missed it. He said, if we would have had that resume and stuff a day earlier, he said, you would have got it. No problem. So I missed it. So it was another opportunity missed. So here I am like, oh my God, that would have been awesome. Well, come full circle, a couple days later, the guy that did get the gig got in a fight at his local short track and got punched in the eye and lost vision in his eye. So I get this phone call that, all right, you're in, right? I'm like, okay. So then I get a phone call about 7:30 in the morning from Ricardo Nault, who is the general manager at Rahal Letterman. And I'm like half asleep. I'm like, hello. And he's like, hey, it's Ricardo Nault from RLL. So I woke up pretty quick. And he said, we need you. He goes, I'm looking at your resume. He goes, are you sure you don't want to work on the car? I was like, no, I don't want to work on the car. I want to spot. And a couple hours later, there was a contract sent to me. I was running because it was a couple weeks away. It was pretty close to the deadline. So I had to get a hard card. I had to do a drug test. I had to do all this. I'm running around Mooresville. I'm pissing in cups. I'm overnighting mail through FedEx. I'm just like going crazy because I'm trying to get all this stuff done. And, I was excited. Never been to an IndyCar race. Watched it millions of times on TV. New experience. So yeah, I was pumped up. And the outcome is, you couldn't write that story, right? Couldn't write that book. There's much more to it prior. There was a kid that was going to do that spotting deal for them and got tragically killed in a car accident a couple months prior. And, so a lot went into that story. And I, you're grateful in the end, but kind of hurtful that the things that happened to the people prior, that you ended up with that deal. But yeah, it's just something you can't really write that script. I don't think you couldn't even lie about it. But it's like opportunities, things happen for a reason, I believe. So there we were, kissing the bricks at the 2020 fanless COVID Indy 500. So to tell you that I didn't cry a lot would be a lie. Yeah.
Expect nothing less, man. That's an incredible, you look back and you connect all those dots and you end up, spotting for Indy 500. It's unbelievable, man. That's crazy. What's it like spotting at the Indy 500, with all of the events that lead up to it? It's such a long time. I know obviously COVID kind of made things a little bit condensed last year. It wasn't like a true Indy 500, but what was that experience like overall?
Yeah, so the week prior to going to Indy, I spotted for Hemrick at Road America. So I was on the airplane flying to Road America with all the JRM guys, and I have my laptop out, and I have all these videos, in-car videos, audio videos, all this Indy 500 stuff I'm watching, because for me, I don't want to look like a jerk off, not knowing what I'm doing. I want to be set in and how these guys talk, and watch how the cars move, and watch the closing rates, and watch all this stuff. So I know when I get there that I'm ready. Right. So like Justin Allgaier, he's like, what are you doing? What are you watching? I'm like, oh, I'm spotting Indy 500. I said, just want to get my ducks in a row here. So I don't look like a video when I get there. So I did a lot of studying, like I said, videos and talking to people. And I'm like, man, the closing rates are going to be so fast, and the cars are going to be so fast. And I got there, and the cars are fast. The closing rates are fast. The moves they make are fast. But I feel like it was all irrelevant because everybody's going fast, right? So they're all going the same speed. The moves look slow, but they're fast. It was definitely different. A lot of different lingo, a lot of different ways of talking. But I think me and Takuma and Ray Brisky, his main spotter, I mean, we gelled from lap one on the track to the time we got done kissing the bricks on Monday morning and I got on the airplane. It was so smooth because you surround yourself with, it's like anything in racing, you surround yourself with the right people, it makes your job that much easier, right? Without the right people on the other side, the engineers, the Derek Davisons, the people that are with that team, it made your job easier because they're professional and they know the ins and outs of what they do. So I think my biggest hurdle was getting to know all the drivers in their cars, because I don't watch that series as much. So those guys want to know they don't care about numbers, right? In NASCAR, you can say, 43, 5 back. Well, they know, okay, Eric Jones is 5 back, right? In IndyCar, I don't think numbers, people don't know numbers. They want to know names. So going back to the hotel room and getting the spotter guide out and figuring out all the liveries, all the colors, all the paint schemes, and who's driving what, that was probably my biggest challenge, but I got it figured out pretty quick. The Aero McLaren cars were probably the hardest because they were the same paint scheme. And then Oliver Askew had blue wingtips. That was the only difference between him and I forget who's driving the other car. But so my deal was Askew blue. Like that was the only car that was throwing me for a loop for the whole 2 weeks I was there. But the experience was great. Good people, great team. Even not winning, going there and not winning the race would have been still the same feeling because you got to go partake in another series that you never thought you would have, and you can take a lot from those series. You go down into the garage and see how they work. You can take a lot from watching them work and contribute it back to NASCAR racing and vice versa. But yeah, it's just a real good experience. Cool to have a different perspective now. We'll be going back in a couple of weeks to test for the Indy 500 2 weeks from now, and then get the ball rolling for the Indy 500 coming up in May.
Something that's really cool that I think really also ties the story all together, like sitting behind you on your shelf, is that brick. And now you got that ring to go with that brick. And, you're from an area so close to that speedway, did that all have some sentimental tie in there when you had a moment to really think about what you were able to accomplish with this team?
Yeah. Like I said, I was up on the spotter stand, and there was a bad wreck at the end with, our teammate had hit the barrier there, and we were under yellow. So here I am thinking NASCAR rules, right? I'm like, oh, green, white, checkered. I'm like, this is going to be terrible. We're the leader. It's probably not the best place you want to be, is leading a race on a green, white, checkered. And, that's just me thinking NASCAR mentality rules. And the IndyCar official comes over to me and puts his arm around me, and everybody's kind of looking at me and slapping me around and all this stuff. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, listen here, guys. Green, white, checkered coming up. I got to focus. Leave me alone. And the official's like, man, this ain't NASCAR. This is IndyCar. He said, we don't do no green, white, checkers. He said, you get that thing around there 4 more laps under caution. Don't hit the pace car. Just get it around there safely. He goes, you won the Indy 500 on your first go around. And I mean, it was like automatic, like shock, and I just took it all in and just let that thing coast around there for a couple laps. And yeah, I mean, I've won Daytona 500s with Matt Kenseth twice, 2009, 2012. So that was a feat in itself. Like when you go NASCAR racing, what race do you want to win? Daytona 500, right? So that was checked off twice. Indy 500 wasn't on the checklist, man. I was stock car guy. No Indy cars. To add that to the list is pretty amazing. I don't think that there's many people that have both. Maybe AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, guys that I have a lot in common with those guys, right? But to have that in your win column, to walk past your trophy case, to go through your phone and see the pictures that led up to the week, think about the story that led up to the week. 2 months before that, Indy 500 was just going to be something to watch on TV. It happened so quick. Like I said, it was very, very emotional. You don't take the time to look back at your accomplishments because you're so focused on the job at hand. So yeah, it was pretty neat.
Now we're gonna get you a Rolex 24 ring. You got to spot one of those now.
Yeah.
24 hours of spotting.
Yeah, we're trying. I want to. That's a bucket list gig that I want to try to get for next season. When I got back from Indy this year, I went right to work for David Gilliland Racing in the Truck Series. He gave me an opportunity to go work there. Things didn't pan out sponsor wise and stuff to run another truck for this season full time. So, that was just kind of a temporary position just to get through the rest of the season. But trying to put a deal together for the 24 hours race was kind of tough, not knowing if if that would turn into something else. So you couldn't agree to do the 24 hours when you had a job, doing something else. So this year, hopefully we can put something together early in the fall, maybe, try to get a good deal with the 24-hour race. I always wanted to spectate that race, but if I could work in it, that'd be even better. But yeah, you just, in life in general, it doesn't matter if you're in racing or what you're doing. Just, I was in the airport that Tuesday morning in Indianapolis, ready to fly back to Charlotte. And I just took time to soak it all in. And, you got to realize what you have accomplished in your career, and just, look back and check it all out. You don't really take time to do that. You're just always working. So when I look back at it all, I do get a little emotional, but that's just part of it.
So, something that's really interesting about you as a whole is you're a racer. Your heart's in this, your blood's in this, you've been in this your whole life. But you've also, and this is it was an interesting side gig that unfortunately has snowballed into something for you. Now you have to kind of take the reins of, is this vintage apparel thing. And it's interesting because I feel like there's some kind of tick where people want vintage stuff, and people will pay an arm and a leg for it. You're smart enough to understand where to get it, corner the market, and you've done a good job with it. So tell me what it was like first starting that collection process, why you started to do it, and at what point did you have to make the decision to continue the way it is today?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. My wife and I, we built a new house, bought 10 acres of land, built a house, built a shop. So we're moving, right? We're moving stuff in boxes. So I had a little tiny collection of hats and shirts, vintage stuff, just from up home, modified dirt, kind of different things, just not much. 5 shirts, 5 hats. So I have that in a box in my shop from moving. Well, Ryan Blaney, he wanted to come check out, the lay of the land or whatever one day. And we're walking through, and he catches his eye on this box because it was kind of open and there's kind of hats and stuff sitting in it. And he was like, yo, I said, yeah. He goes, what's this stuff here? I said, oh, it's just stuff. We're just moving. It's just a box of junk, And he's like, starts ripping through it. Oh, look at this. Like a Troyer engineering shirt with modifieds and dirt cars on it. And he's like, what are you gonna do with it? I said, it's just mine. I'm just moving. It's just in boxes. I haven't unboxed everything. I want to buy it. Like, well, it's not for sale. It's my stuff. Well, I'd like to have it. I said, well, okay. Well, what do you give me for it? So he ends up buying this box of stuff and hands me, good amount of money. And he left that day, and I'm like looking at this, couple $100 worth of money. And I see this stuff all the time because I collect automobilia signs, porcelain signs. All, you see my shop, but I see this racing stuff all the time. And I just pass by it because it's just a junky t-shirt, an old hat, whatever. But when he left that day, I'm like, so people want this stuff, okay. So I just started, when I'd see it, I'd buy it. I'd see it, I'd buy it. And I amassed a pretty big collection. And I'm like, I'll just start a little side business, just a cash business, maybe Craigslist, maybe Facebook Marketplace, whatever. So I was like, I'll come up with a catchy name. And my dad had a consignment car business in Pennsylvania called Dayz Gone By, for his consignment, like classic car consignments. So I kind of stole the name from him because I thought it was catchy. and got a logo made up from Tanner, who works at Bell Racing Helmets. He made a nice logo for me. It's very catchy. It's got, all the old cars on it. And then we just started more and more, and people started buying, and there's a niche for it. And it just kind of snowballed into more of a business than a side business. But after the layoff and all the stuff that's going on these days, I've kind of made it a priority these days just to keep, I have a quota that I set kind of every week money wise that I want to make. Whether I got to discount some stuff and move some stuff pretty quick, that's just part of any business. People call me all the time, and they got shirts here and there, and I go and grab them, and I just keep a good stock. And like now, it's become my everyday job for now. Eventually, we're going to get back racing full time somehow, or one way or another. But spending time with my family that I've been on the road for 23 years. Every weekend, to be home with my family and to watch my kid grow up, I missed a lot of those years. We adopted my son Axel when he was 2 years old, 2014. He's 10 years old now. So it's, you feel like you missed a lot of that time. So when you get the opportunity, whether it was my choice or not, it's brought a whole new perspective for me. So yeah, I'm going to do this, for another couple months, and then, get hard back at it. So, it's, I have a lot of stuff, I have a lot of stuff, a lot of old stuff, a lot of cool stuff, a lot of one of a kind stuff. So, the niche is there. The hat you're wearing, it's just another thing we've sold, throughout the last couple months, and it's a constant flow. And I've met so many great people. I've got normal customers, got people, when I print out that label and I see the name, I know that person has bought before, and I'll chuck something, free in there for them for always being a good customer. And, I try to take care of the people that are taking care of me at this point in time. So it's pretty neat. It's just a hunt, you're on the hunt for the next cool thing. So we'll see what we find next, but it's always something every week. I'll find something.
I'm actually scrolling the site right now, looking at hats. So be honest with you, thinking about grabbing some stuff. I might just ship some stuff to your house, James, to save on shipping. But
you could always do that, or I have other ways of getting shipping done, but like it's really cool because to me, you're curating a lot of important things. It's not just like hats and t-shirts and stuff. You've also mentioned signage. To me, that's important. Advertising back in the day was huge, and I feel like that's something that we don't archive enough and save in history.
Yep.
Even to physically have it. Like, you've had some pristine stuff that, like,
yep,
just from watching American Pickers, it's like, oh, that's a rare find or something. So you do a good job, and you have like really great connections for sure to like be able to say, hey, I got this. You want to get in on it?
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, to me, you're just preserving the sport, in the racing side of things. You're preserving things that has made the sport to what it is today, right? And unfortunately, I don't think NASCAR does a good job of showing the new fan what it used to be like, So when you wear a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series hat and you're sitting in the grandstand and somebody's at a Camping World Truck Series race and they're like, Craftsman Super Trucks, what's that? Well, you can tell them, right? So
Yep.
every if somebody's wearing a Davey Allison shirt and somebody's like, oh, who is that? Like, everything has a story. So every piece of shirt, apparel, whatever I sell is going to have a story. And hopefully the person that bought it can tell the story to the next person. So that's the way I think about it. You're not just, you're selling a history book in a shirt or in a hat. the sport for what it is and how it got to where it is key. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it.
And that's kind of why James and I wanted to do this whole podcast, was talk about old racing and teach people stuff and be educational, and like having some of this gear is, such a huge part of it. Like seeing the vintage Chris James wears when he's at the track, like every time he walks in, I'm like, that's dope. I got to get one of those. So got to do some shopping.
Yeah.
A big thing too is like how you also mentioned about the history. Like I remember a Blue Max crew shirt and hat combo I got from you last year, and you told me the whole story more about Blue Max Racing, and I thought that was a cool team back in the day. Like you had a drag team and a cup team, and like it was pretty competitive in both fields, and that's the stuff that like you learn about, and you're like, wow, I wish this could happen today, and like it makes you appreciate the history of the sport too. So you definitely, the two of us, we're definitely those kinds of guys that are going to create that conversation, facilitate that growth, and continue that community, because you're definitely starting to grow that more and more. I feel like that's why a lot of the younger fans, you see them wearing old hats, because it's, hey, I remember that when I was a kid, and that's like my time capsule or my statement for it. I know Mark likes to do that with some IMSA apparel at some point. We'll try to do that, but like we need to get him like some Robbie Gordon stuff, man. You got to hook him up with Robbie Gordon gear.
I got some.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I got some. It's not our stuff, but I tried to. NASCAR is like my market. Sprint cars, starting to get pretty big. I haven't really reached that IndyCar market because I don't think there is one really. I don't see a lot of vintage IndyCar stuff, but yeah, it's like I have some Miller High Life like Camel GT, IMSA kind of stuff. And, it's just the niche more now is heavy in NASCAR and sprint car racing. I think, we can branch out to the AJ Foyt kind of coyote racing. I've had a lot of that stuff sell off, but I really haven't pushed it. So we'll see. Try to stick with what and what's getting you by right now, and try to branch out here when I find certain other items,
Well, I'll send you a message about that Robbie Gordon gear. Don't worry. I'll send you a message right after this.
Yeah. I actually had I don't do a lot of crew shirts and things like that, but I did just sell a couple weeks ago like a Robbie Gordon, like Woody Woodpecker, Universal Studio, Menards shirt. But if I would have known, I would have kept it. But I got rid of that. But now that I know, like it's the same thing I can find it. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of people that worked at Robbie's for a long time and things like that sitting in people's closets, just kind of rotting away. That's another thing is I'd like to preserve this stuff because it's going to end up burned or in a waste pile or, it sounds kind of weird, but I've gone through a lot of deceased people's closets. But I mean, that's just where the stuff's at. I mean, people, that's people that worked in racing a long time ago, eventually, unfortunately, your life is going to end at some point. There's going to be that stuff. And some people's kids and family don't really care about it. They'll just throw it away. So you want to try to get there before, not that you're knocking on the door after the funeral, but
like estate sales and stuff. Yeah,
estate sales. Yeah. And so it's those kind of things that, I don't find much stuff at like Goodwills and things like that, but people know me well enough, and I know enough people in the sport that when that does happen, a year down the road, they'll call me and tell me to come check some stuff out if I'd like to buy it. So, I have a good group of Dale Jr., Blaney, Chase, all them guys I know really well, and that helps out a lot too because it's just word of mouth. So it's going really well. It's over exceeding my expectations, really. But we'll keep it going even when I get a full-time job again. But for now, it's really good to have.
Hey, maybe your son could run it, and it'd be like an introduction to business course for him. like the life skills that school doesn't teach you anymore. You teach them through the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. If I could get him off of his Xbox 360 or Xbox One, maybe we
Just don't
could.
get the new one. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Don't get the next
yeah.
one.
Well,
Exactly.
and
Bingo.
heck, I just bought a Nintendo NES, regular, from when I was little.
Yeah.
So I'm probably not helping out the situation when I'm like, oh, I'm probably not helping the situation.
No, but like tell me about that, because like that was kind of cool. I saw you had like Days of Thunder and like actual like a plethora of like NES games. How's that been? Have you been having fun with that?
Well, it's cool because it's the same thing as vintage shirts and hats. You're just going back and show your kid like, this is what we had when we were kids. Like, look what you got. Look what we got. Like, we had junk. You got the cool stuff, But to us, that was cool. Blades of Steel and Contra and Bill Elliott's Racing Challenge, Al Unser's Sprint. Like they were like, you look at them now and you're playing them and it's like, man, this was not fun. but back then, RC Pro-Am, Ivan Stewart's off-road racing, like all those.
Oh yes.
Like all those games are like I always I want my thing that I want is an Ivan Stewart off-road. But I always thought that was the funnest arcade stand-up game there was. And I'm on the hunt. So if you ever see one, you let me know.
I'll be on the lookout. Probably it's like a Midway or probably an Atari box, I'm assuming back then. So
Yeah.
Atari stand-up Ivan Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got I think it's got 4 wheels, around the outside of it. I just remember when you'd go out to dinner, we used to go to this cool little restaurant by my house. It was an old schoolhouse, and it was called Frank's Schoolhouse Tavern. And, you'd go there with your mom and dad when you were little, and we eat dinner. They'd get a couple drinks with their friends and stuff, and just go over to the arcade over in the corner and just, shoot quarters, $10 worth of quarters in there, and just play Ivan Stewart's off-road racing in pole position the whole night. So
that's a fun time as a kid. Mark,
yeah.
Did you ever do that? I remember there was an Italian restaurant that we'd go play. What's that one? Cruisin' USA. That was always the big.
Oh God, yeah. I had Cruisin' USA for N64.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid.
Girl in the Ferrari with the blonde hair flying.
Yeah. I recently bought the Driven movie video game too for PS2 off eBay. Absolutely terrible. Just but it's just like an arcade game where you just try and beat the speed, but your car is so loose that you just spin out all the time and you can't adjust it. So it's
how else are you gonna hit the quarters, man? How else?
Exactly.
Yeah, you can pick up them quarters. Yeah.
What a terrible film. But anyway, so Brent, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Where can people find your store online, and where can people follow you and all that noise? Plug some stuff for a few minutes.
Yeah, just Twitter is at Brent/Wentz. Most of the links and stuff to the Etsy is on the Days Gone By Vintage Apparel. I have a website, daysgoneby.net. It's just kind of a website that kind of links you over to the new Etsy store that I've started. I feel like the Etsy platform has grown my little gig here a lot, because before I was answering a lot of questions to what's the size, what's this, what's that, and I'd answer a bunch of questions, and now it's just there. You can just go to the Etsy store, Days Gone By Vintage Apparel on Etsy, and then just click what you want, buy it, and it'll be shipped out quick. I try to take care of my customers. I do priority 2-day shipping. I like to get it there quick. I don't want it lost in the United States Postal Service, whatever they got going on. But I try to get it there fast, try to keep my customers happy. If they don't like it, which hasn't been a problem, I usually try to figure it out some way or another, give them another shirt, have them send it back, pick something else out. But it's customer comes first, right? So try to keep it good with the customer base.
Well, as a
Awesome.
satisfied customer, I gotta say you do a great job. Also, really like the little cards you included in the last couple of packages. Those are fun just because you don't get to see trading cards that often, man.
Yeah, so I've been through probably 15 boxes of those Max cards. I've started doing that around Christmas. 36 packs in a box. So do the math. Every box, every order. Besides the posters, I can't get the pack of cards and can't get it in there. So, but yeah, anytime you order something from me, there'll always be something extra, something a little cool in there. It's been packs of cards for the last couple months because I just think that's cool. It's something that brings back memories as a kid. You slice open a pack of cards, you get, oh man, I got a Dale Earnhardt, I got Alan Quickie, I got I saw Mike Joy in there. I seen Ned Jarrett. It's just any pack of cards. Doesn't matter if it's baseball, racing, football. That's just something you did as a kid. And you thought it was fun, So it's just something extra. I hear a lot of people talk about the cards sometimes more than the apparel itself. So maybe I should just start selling the cards.
I feel like there's an opening in that market because, to your point about how some people just throw their things away. I feel like the number one thing that gets thrown away first is the trading cards. Because people are like, there's no value in this. I'm not going to sort through these. I've had people just going to not an estate sale, just someone's sale, and they find out you're a NASCAR fan. They're like, here, just take all of this, please, just take it. Take it. It's like, what do I do with it?
My uncle collects old die casts. We used to go to toy shows and stuff. So he has all the Texaco trucks and everything and cards. Yep. My God, they'd throw them at you. They'd be like, just take these. They're awful.
Here's a Tupperware box of cards. Just
honestly, they just throw them in there. So no, it's awesome, man. It's a cool piece of history as well. To look through old cards, and I like James's story on Instagram the other day. He had all the cards. It was really cool to see them.
Yeah, and I think it's cooler to rip open a pack, rather than getting the Tupperware box just full of miscellaneous cards. It's that slice and open that wax pack, fresh open, never been touched by anybody. It's just something cool. And I thought it was something neat to put in there. It's vintage. It goes with the whole theme. And
I think the best part is you could smell the air from 1991 too in there. It's sealed perfectly.
And you can win a chance to go to the 1992 Winston in most of the packs. Come that little scratch off game, and I won probably 3 or 4 trips, and I just sent it in, and I don't get any returns, so I don't.
Do you know what building it is that you're sending it to?
No, I'm not sure. I just drop it off. I just drop it off over there at the Speedway. See maybe I can get, back into that 1992 Winston with each other, But no, it's neat. It's just something cool, and it's taken off, and people like it. So, kudos to me for a good idea, I guess.
Well, Brent, thanks so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it, and we will see everyone next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate the time. It was cool.
Wow, dive back out of the ocean. That was that interview. That was fun, man. I always love talking with Brent. I could talk with Brent all day, but I don't want to because I know he's got other things to do, and so do I. So
yeah, he's a busy man. It's a Saturday when we're recording this. Got to get back to your family, man. Chill. And, he's enjoying some time, like he said, away from the racetrack for the first time in a long time, getting to be home on a weekend. If you work in racing, that's incredibly rare. So
yeah, I thought especially with his modified work, he would have the weekend, busy, full of something, but you know what? Luckily he has an off weekend. It was nice of him to give us some time to just to chat with us. And we chatted for a little bit afterwards too. Just the guy loves to talk about racing and all kinds of different things and has a lot of great opinions on stuff. And thanks as always to our partners at Blue Emu for supporting our wonderful podcast here and helping us do everything that we do. Be sure to check out Blue Emu for some relief for your minor aches and pains. I had a Blue Emu recovery bath yesterday for a long session on the stationary bike, and it was fantastic. So check that product out at Walmart or Amazon, all your major retailers. So check out some. Yeah, and while you're at it, pick up a little bit of that continuous spray. So when you're not drawing a bath, you could just get instant relief in a spray form, man. So I don't know about you. I was using that the other day on my elbow. It's been, I don't know, I feel like I bumped it, but then it feels more like, I don't know, something different, but now it's feeling good. Too much iRacing, James. Too much iRacing. Man. I don't know. Maybe my forearms are getting a little little more flex because of the dirt racing. I love dirt racing just because I love hanging the car sideways, dude. It's not the fastest way around at some places, but it's fun. But Lululemon's making me feel good now. So maybe I'll go and run a race in a minute.
There you go. Well, thanks, guys. This was episode 72 of the Flashback to Track podcast, and we will see you all next week.
Take care.